I like how you said "wish me luck" on the Ethernet thing. It looks good, man. I'm excited.
Good.
All right.
Good.
All right. Here we go. All right, Sam. Let's see if this works. All right. Ready? All right. Welcome to Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, you know him as the goalkeeper coach for a professional team unyet named, the one and only Pro GK Academy, Omar Zini, from his dad's office, making things look fancy. I love it, man.
Yes, thank you. It's official now. It's official now. You could say LAFC too. So haven't announced it just yet, but yeah, thank you.
Well, you know, it's just so funny because our guest panelist today, obviously we were joking around before the show started and we were talking about the fact that like, oh, you know, maybe they're just waiting for like the first regular season game to make the huge announcement, because all the supporters of LAFC have just been waiting to find out who the goalkeeper coach is for LAFC too, you know, and we were talking about like maybe they're going to have you come out from the tunnel and just kind of wave into the fans and everything like that. So, congratulations on that, man. Honestly, you know, joking aside, you know, Sam knows this. Our guest right now, honestly, really doesn't need an introduction. England national men's goalkeeper coach Sam Meek, who's been working throughout the FA for quite a while now, you know, and honestly, I mean, just the level of talent that you guys have of all the goalkeeper coaches out there, man. It's so funny because, like, you know, when you said, you're like, oh, you could mention me at U17, but honestly, we all work kind of as a collaboration at the FA. So we all kind of look ourselves as national men's goalkeeper coaches. Sam Meek, everybody. Give him a round of applause, Sam Meek.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Honestly, yeah. Sam, you know, one of the cool things about this is that, first off, you know, we first met Tim Dittmer. I think it was about a couple of years ago, Omar, at a convention in Baltimore. I think it was. And we didn't know at the time how much of a wealth of not only knowledge but resources Tim Dittmer was going to be. Because honestly, whenever we have a question, whenever we have a topic that we want to float by somebody, you know, I'll sometimes reach out to Tim and he'll be like, oh, I got the perfect person for you. Perfect person on this. And he recommended you for this. And today's topic, guys, is going to be creating realistic triggers in your session design. But kind of before we kind of go into all that, Sam, for those people out there who kind of might not be familiar with kind of like the pyramid of the FA, how you guys go about, you know, selecting your goalkeeper coaches at the different levels, how you guys run your camps and everything. Why don't you shed a little light?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll have to thank Tim for that. So if I mess this up, I'm sure he'll be banging on at me for that. But no, yeah. So at the FA we have 5 full-time goalkeeping coaches, and we work across the national teams, and we also work across the coach education program, delivering the goalkeeping B licenses and the goalkeeping A licenses, which are both UEFA accredited. So part of our role as a national goalkeeping coach is obviously being part of a coach developer as well, and helping out the goalkeepers, the goalkeeping coaches within England. So yeah, it's an exciting job because you get to work with the best talented goalkeepers on the national stage, and you also get the opportunity to work and develop with the best goalkeeping coaches in the country as well. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour, if you like, about how our day-to-day role looks, really.
I mean, I love one of the things that you said there in regards to, you know, having that kind of that collaboration that you all have with the coaches. And Omar, I know this is something that's been really big for you. And honestly, you know, to be honest with you, I think one of the reasons that you're now coaching at such a high level is because of the collaborations that you've made the last couple of years, you know, working with different coaches you've met on social media and through podcasts and all that sort of thing.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, during COVID, it was a perfect time. Everybody's guard was down a little bit. Coaches like Sam and, you know, Tim, top coaches, had free time for the first time in a long, long time. So it was a good opportunity to do some Q&As, but also too, it was a little bit selfish on my end to ask all the questions that if I ever get a role like this, and hopefully and beyond from here, that I had those, I guess, worries and concerns that were in my back of my head, that were mental blocks, get them out to coaches who have experienced that, and ask them that how they, got through adversity. Anthony White, for example, I asked him when he got to Bournemouth and I think Oldham, I think that's where he was before. And I said, you had older goalkeepers and you were at that age, like 25, 26. How were you able to manage such, experienced goalkeepers who were looking at you and saying, you're too young? And he would always just say, like, you need to just come in, and you're not trying to command their respect, but you need to show them that, like, you're trying to make them better and you're going to do whatever it takes to make them better. And people appreciate that and respect that. So to answer your question, Mike, like, yeah, those kind of answers gave me peace of mind, knowing that you don't need to do anything different. Just go in there, show the goalkeepers that the questions that you ask are for them and to benefit them. And I think at the end of the day that young coaches who are listening, that's all you need to do, is try to make sure that you're trying to help the goalkeepers develop, and then they'll appreciate that.
Yeah. By the way, Sam, feel free to step in any time. Like, there's no reason to wait to, like, be asked a question or anything like that, But honestly, Sam's actually 18 years old, so he knows exactly what Omar's referring to right now. No, dude, Sam, you are like it's so funny because when people think of like a goalkeeper coach, they think of like some gruff old guy with like a beard or something like that, hammering shots and all that. But like, obviously at the FA, obviously with the kind of the renewal of the goalkeeping program and kind of the revitalization of it that's happened in, the last 5-6 years or whatever, you guys have kind of gone, I don't want to say a modern direction because that sounds kind of cheesy, but there are a lot of young coaches in the FA now that have some more, lack of better term, unorthodox ideas from the traditional goalkeeping setup.
Yeah, of course. I think back to that. Thanks for bringing up age now. But when I was 18 is when I first started coaching, and I think back to when I was 18. Now, if I looked at myself, I'm 31 now, and if I looked at myself at 31, I would, I'd be looking at the sessions I'm doing now, going, this guy's nuts. This guy's crazy. What is he doing here? Like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do this. It's evolved that much now. I'm definitely not the same coach I was back then. And I think the exciting thing is I'm probably not going to be the same coach in 10 years' time as well, which is exciting, because it'll, football evolves, develops, and it grows. And as a coach, you have to move with the times, and you have to also look at what the other nations doing, and how can we stay a step ahead of the other nations and be competitive as coaches, because we need to coach the boys the new techniques that are around there. So I think one of the biggest topics at this moment in time is like spreads and blocks and that type of 1v1 techniques. And they definitely weren't around when I was a goalkeeper. Spreads and blocks, or in England, it wasn't around for me, and I definitely didn't coach that like 5-10 years ago, and now I'm coaching it now. So yeah, we've got a youthful, young, aspiring coaches at the FA, goalkeeping coaches. We also, have some young coaches in the outfield setup as well. So it's a really good opportunity for some young guys to get a crack at it now. And that's not to say we haven't got the old heads at the FA as well, because you still need the grey hair around, and you still need the experience. And we've got a hell of a lot of really, really experienced people at the FA that is great for myself to bounce off and to get that sort of arm around the shoulder and that critical friend at times. I think is key for you to develop as a coach as well.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Go ahead, Omar.
No, I think just to Sam's point, I think I was speaking to somebody about it today, and they were asking me about the spread save, and one of the goalkeepers that we had on trial was doing certain movements. And I just said, growing up, when you watch Casillas, didn't really do it that much. And then you started seeing a little bit more of Neuer transitioning the game a little bit more. And, watching the highlights on the weekend, a lot of the stuff you'll see is that final action. And they'll more or less show you the big time save where the spread worked for him. But a lot of kids obviously take that final action. And we talk about, young kids being so literal. So as us coaches, and for me as well, is like, okay, here's the final action, but can we talk about the moments? We'll get into triggers later, but like what led him and Neuer in that situation to realize that the spread was the best save for him, to have that trailing leg to cover the far post, but for him to also almost be in a position where that spread save covers the entire goal because he played the angle right, he played the touch right. So I think as a coach, and Sam, I'm sure you can attest to this as well, like early on for me, it was like certain drills, and I would, obviously try to replicate the game and all that. But then as you get a little bit older now as a coach, you start realizing, okay, like what was the action prior to the actual spread save? What was the movement like? Okay, where was the weight? Was it on the transferring of the left leg to the right leg on the shift? when you got there? Were you going too fast? Were you did your hips rise prior to the shot? There's so many different things. And then now when you actually are stripping those back in the activation portion of the session, you're actually able to recreate a lot of those movements. And then that's, I think, where a lot of the development, in my opinion, will come from. And those kids can finally say, okay, I can actually see why that final action was executed perfectly. And also, too, when the execution of the final action wasn't executed properly, what was the reason behind it?
You know, I got a question. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, sorry, Michael. I was just going to just off the back of that, Omar, you're 100% right. And as we get older and more experienced as coaches, we delve more into like, okay, why did that action happen? What sort of information did the goalkeeper have to make that action? And you know, I do think back to, I just coached the way I was coached when I started coaching. I just thought, right, okay, let's just we laugh about it now, but I had like traffic cones, loads of traffic cones. It looked like, the M6 motorway on some of my sessions. And, so that's how I started, just doing what I did as a goalkeeper. And then, I started to speak to outfield coaches and go, okay, what is the striker seeing here? Like, when the goalkeeper's in this position, what is the striker thinking? And started to get into the striker's head a little bit, then started to make me think about, what actions does the goalkeeper need to do to counteract that? So yeah, definitely 100%.
And Mike, one last thing. And Sam, we had Ben Dragavon, who was a former professional goalkeeper, was with Seattle Sounders here in the States. And he is a performance coach. And one of the things he was saying is that working with Hope Solo, they were measuring the amount of weight she puts in on a regular set, taking a volley, how much weight she puts on each leg, and how it would be, the weight distribution was off sometimes. It'd be like 70-30 versus, 50-50 or even like 55-45. And he was saying like those minor adjustments to let the goalkeeper know that prior to the shot, if that shot's going the opposite way and your left leg or the off leg is super loaded and it has a lot more power on it, more weight on it, then it's going to be a delayed reaction to that far post. So like now the intersection of like actual sports science and helping us as goalkeeper coaches understand those little minute details are huge.
It's really good. It's great that you said that, Omar. And by the way, we got a question here actually in the comment section that I'm going to get to in a second right here. So shout out to you, Chris. This is a great question right here. Is the fact that you brought up that whole sports performance kind of angle going on. And Sam, I know at the FA, you guys are big about that, with the performance coaches and everything like that. And is that something that kind of you take into consideration, during the identification process that like, okay, maybe this goalkeeper's not where we want them to be right now physically, but we know we can get them there based on them having the attributes, maybe from a mental standpoint, from a tactical standpoint, that we're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 19 characteristics that we look at for an international goalkeeper, and they're split into the 5 areas of technical, tactical, psychological, and physical, and social as well. Sorry. So in terms of the physical stuff, we do our physical testing every time we get the boys in on an international camp. We do goalkeeping camps as well. So we'll get 16 goalkeepers over 4 days, and we'll just do some very basic physical sort of tests, and that'll sort of tell us where the boys are currently in sort of 3 key areas. So the 3 key areas for us physically is looking, are they an efficient mover? So can they get around the goal athletically well? Are they physically robust? So, are they going to break down with an injury, or are they able to, deal with the demands of international football? And also we'll look at physical presence as well. And, when we get certain scores, we can see where the players may, if we improve them in this certain area physically, that's going to improve some of their, effective actions technically and tactically. And also looking at the maturation as well, because we do start to look at goalkeepers at 14 years of age. So our under 15s internationally, how if they're not going to be physically, they're not going to have physical presence at 14, 15, but it's sort of a good one to go, okay, this boy is showing he's a really efficient mover from the test. And when he gets his physical presence, we know that he's just going to go from, A, B, C, he's just going to keep going that way. And sometimes it's a really good feedback tool with the relationship with the clubs to go, okay, we've identified this as a key area where we think he can improve, and where most of his physical development needs to come from. And it's sort of a good relationship with the club then, that when he goes back to his club, that they can start working in this certain area as well. So every single one of those areas, the 5 areas I mentioned there, are all key to being a successful goalkeeper, really.
It's funny that you brought up the maturation process, because Omar was physically mature at, I think, 9 years old. I think you were.
Dude, It was crazy. I was really, really tall, super young, and we've talked about it forever. But yeah, I was tall.
I'm still waiting for my growth spurt now. I'm fine.
Me too. Trust me, Sam. So I don't know if you ever did this. I actually learned this from another smaller goalkeeper who played at QPR, and he's like, whenever you meet a manager for the first time, if you're a 6 foot and under, just wear your boots when you first meet them, because they'll always have this impression of you at a certain height. So they're like, he's like 6'2". What are you talking about? So anyway, that's what I would always do. If anybody's hearing that right now, who brought me onto their clubs, sorry about that. Now you know why you got that. But no, but that's another point too, is the physical maturation on the opposite spectrum too. I've seen a lot of times where a club will bring in a boy, or a girl, who's physically matured earlier on than everybody else, and then they get frustrated when they don't meet the ceiling that they expected from them, despite the fact that the only reason they were really able to excel at the level that they were was because they physically matured early.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I'll tell you a quick funny story about when I was at one of the clubs. I once signed the boy because I looked at the parents as well and thought, wow, the dad's massive and the mum's a good height as well. And we signed him, and he was only small, but we thought he's going to grow. And then I later on found out that it was his stepdad who was bringing him, so it wasn't his actual dad.
Oh my God, that's
hilarious. Yeah, I learned from that. But no, you do see expectations as well. You see, we can also see internationally, we can have some boys that are like 10 months difference, but they're in the same international squad. So that, under 15s, for example, you can be born, January part of the year, and then you can have a boy in the same age group who's born in December, and there's 10 months difference, 10, 11 months difference between the two boys. They're literally a few days off being the year below or the year above. So, sometimes taking that into consideration as well, and looking at not just here and now, not looking at a goalkeeper here and now who's going to be really successful at 15, 16s, and then may filter out the pathway. We need to look at those boys are going to help us, but also looking at the boys that have the potential to maybe help us later on at 18s, 19s, and even 21s and into the seniors.
You brought up the great point in regards to the maturation and the development of a goalkeeper, not just from a physical standpoint, but just from a tactical standpoint. All of that, we're really looking at the long-term value. And, essentially at the FA, obviously you're looking at, the first team, the senior team, are they going to be able to benefit us internationally at that level? Why do you think, and Omar, you interject into this as well too, before we start kind of moving into this topic here. Why do you think so many coaches at the youth levels, and maybe it's not the same in the UK, but it is here in the United States, are looking more short-term? As opposed to thinking about, the overall well-being of this goalkeeper? Is it just because they're just looking at the goalkeeper as a means to an end to their club?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a topic that is really high, obviously in the States, but obviously in England as well. In the youth teams, we can sort of, especially with goalkeepers, we can sort of look at the ones that are going to give us instant success now, and I suppose it's what are you in it for? So as a youth coach, are you in it to win an under 18s league, or are you in it to try and develop players for the first team? And if you're in it to develop players for the first team, then the goalkeeper who you've got at this moment in time may be physically able to deal with 18s football, and like I talk about here and now, he might be a here and now, and you may have another goalkeeper who's physically a little bit underdeveloped, but he's got the potential to probably surpass this goalkeeper. And I think it's, you have to weigh up your options and go, okay, what do we want? Do we want to win the 18s league? Do we want to win the game? And we'll play the physically developed one, even though we probably think he might not have too much of a future with us. Or do we give the opportunity and exposure to the less developed one that we think has got a real good chance of, pushing into our first team, being a first team goalkeeper. So I think it's knowing what you're in it for, really.
Yeah. Omar, anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think now stepping into like the professional world, there's trialists and
must feel nice to say that. Must feel nice to say that.
No, but it does. There's a mentality shift in the way you assess goalkeepers, right? And as Sam just alluded to there, it's very important to find out what's the priority here. Are we trying to prioritize winning a certain age group, winning the league, or are we trying to develop these goalkeepers for the national team and beyond? And I think there are certain times where they'll ask me questions about, hey, what do you think about this goalkeeper? What do you think about this goalkeeper? Can you compare them? Can you stack them together? And obviously you take the age into consideration. Then you take their build. Then you take for me afterwards, I start looking at things that I was not good at, which is nutrition, communication. I was good at communication, but nutrition was a big one for me. Are they, guys who go to the gym afterwards? Is their body going to break down? Do they have good habits? Those are all little things after we find out the age, what's their age level, what's their ability. And then after that, I start dissecting a little bit more. And I say, do they have the habits that if we were to look at their potential in the next few years, that those habits are actually going to continue to progress them and get better and better to fulfill that potential? Or is their potential now as high as it's going to go because their habits are not at the level they need to be at? So they're only going to maintain where they're at, and they're never going to actually, break through the ceiling. So I think that's also where my mindset is now. And when you look at and try to assess goalkeepers.
Yeah, I think Omar, just on that, we're in an interesting sort of scenario at the FA where we are about development, but we also want to win tournaments and having the balance between when we get to the UEFA under 17s tournaments or 19s or 21s. We got 3 goalkeepers to select, and we will be selecting based on one, who we think will help us win the tournament. Absolutely, as our number one goal. We'll have given the opportunities at 15, 16s leading into that tournament and 17s and exposing certain goalkeepers to this, because your second choice or your third choice may be the one that we spoke about that we actually think might come good at under 19s, and we're taking him to the tournament to experience the tournament, but he might not necessarily play because we want to win the tournament. So if the number one's going to stay in, he's going to stay in, and he's going to help us win the tournament. So we do have a balance of development, plus we want to win major tournaments.
Sam, before we move on, Mike, I just want to ask you, from 2010, just give me the honest answer that you believe. Was Joe Hart too young? I still don't understand what that whole situation was, why he wasn't the number one going into the tournament. I felt like he did enough. And I'm sure, he was too young, but I felt that he was ready to go. Are you going to
bring up that England-US match, or is that what you're going to do right now?
No, I love Rob Green, but I'm just thinking in general, do you think that Joe Hart, if you had to do it all over again and you Tim, and your team were in that position, could you discuss what would you have done? Would you have said, I think, Joe is, not the head coach, but if Joe was ready to go, what did you think?
It's a great question.
Well, Sam was 8 years old at the time, so
It's a great question. I think I don't think Joe was too young. I think he'd had a lot of exposure when he was young to senior football. So he played since he was 18. I think when he got his first professional stint at Shrewsbury. So he'd had some experience, but Joe at the time was one of the best goalkeepers in the country. There was no doubt about that. He was one of the best goalkeepers in the country. So, was he too young? Are you too young if you're good enough? I think Joe was good enough at the time. So I don't think he was. You can never really get a crystal ball out and go, yes, he's gonna be the England goalkeeper for the next 10, 15 years. We never know that. And Jordan at this moment in time is doing very well for us, Jordan Pickford, and he was young. If you look at Jordan in the last World Cup 2018, I haven't got the stats close to me, but I think he'd only played a handful of international games competitively before asked to be the number one at the 2018 World Cup, and Jordan came out of that tournament shining as well. So it's risk and reward. We never really know until we expose them and see how they do.
His climb was just fantastic, though. He was killing it at the 20. It seemed like at the 21s level, and then obviously, the move from Sunderland, obviously to Everton and everything like that. It was a really steep climb for Jordan, and I think everybody who's an England fan would say that he had a successful tournament, and that he was ready for the level. Let's talk about how we're going to develop that next generation of goalkeepers to play at that level, guys. Let's get a little bit into this topic. Chris, I promise you we will get to your question, but I kind of want to move into this right now. Today's topic, like I said, is creating realistic triggers in your session design. Sam, for maybe some parents out there who might be listening for their kids out there and not familiar with the football vernacular that we use, what do we mean by triggers?
Yeah, so triggers are sort of little trigger points that you can try and look out for that'll help you best form a decision. So probably one of the best ways I can describe it is the more information that you have, the better decision you will make. So if we look for certain patterns within the game or within a certain player, from what we see in front of us, it'll help us form a decision. If we only have maybe one little bit of information, we're going to make a decision based on that sole bit of information we've got. If we've got 3 or 4 different things and we've looked at and we've digested it, we'll be able to make probably the most effective decision possible. So I might not have explained that very well, but that's sort of probably what triggers sort of means in my head. I don't know if Omar, you might be able to help me out here with that. I don't know if that's come across well or not.
No, that was perfect. I think, I mean, just to build off what you were saying, like I've worked with some goalkeepers where it's, let's say there's a wide man, the striker's dribbling down the center of the goal, and he has a wide man to his left. And some goalkeepers will be triggered and ready to go if that ball gets slipped through. And I've worked with some goalkeepers when that ball does get slipped through, their trigger in their mind from their experience of being successful with it is, I'm going to sprint out. The striker has to find the ball. Their head is down. I'm going to come out and spread. And I've also had goalkeepers who their trigger is, I've done that before and it didn't work, so I'm probably going to stay home. So to your point, that's understanding the pattern play and making those decisions over time. And with that experience of either being successful with that technique or being unsuccessful with it, you start actually realizing, okay, this is a technique that based on the triggers that I've experienced, this is what I'm going to do in this situation. And that's why we talk about like guys like Buffon or any goalkeeper who's, played at the highest level for so long. They've gotten so much experience and those triggers have evolved over time. And I'm sure as the game has evolved, they've evolved with it. So I think, that was a really good point.
I love the fact that you just brought up Buffon because, I mean, Sam, I don't know how you feel in regards to that, but I believe that he's somebody, especially in flighted ball situations, that he recognizes all the scenarios that could take place in that moment. And when he sees that slight trigger that's going to lead to that scenario, he's already there. And it's almost like he's predicting, but he's not anticipating. He's still reacting, but yet he's got that educated guess. And because of that, it's almost like his mind was ready to go once that play happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Buffon's been one of the outstanding goalkeepers, and I'm so lucky that I've seen him play, and he's still around playing, which is a real delight. So if any young kids have not seen him play yet, I would strongly advise you get to see him play before he finishes his career. Mm-hmm. And I think we're probably looking at, if we look at the top world-class goalkeepers, which is like Ederson and Alisson at Liverpool and Manchester City respectively, these goalkeepers have got similar traits. I think, 2 very different styles of goalkeepers, but highly effective in what they do. And the triggers that they use to become effective, that they are, in my opinion, one of the most, or the 2 most intelligent goalkeepers that we currently see play.
I got a question for. Go ahead, Omar.
No, I think Meslier, for example, I'm not a huge fan yet, but I'm still working on it. I enjoy his game, but one thing that I've always noticed about him, and I think he's gaining his experience because he's so young, is the fact that he misreads a lot of crosses. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but like if you watch him, it's like sometimes he's like a boxer. He'll like take 2 jab steps forward, realize he's not going to get it, and he'll drop back in. And because he starts so high, he jabs and then recovers, and he's recovering like 4 or 5 yards. And by the time he gets back to his line, either the shot's on frame and he's not set, or he's making an emergency type movement. And I just feel like over time, those triggers will evolve for him where he's realizing, hey, this is not working for me. I'm making my job a lot harder. So maybe I either don't make a movement, we delay, and then we actually, drop to our line 2 yards instead of dropping 4, or I come out for the ball. I just feel like sometimes he gets caught in no man's land in between those 2 decisions. And I think his normal trigger is anything that's an outswinger, I'm cheating forward, which is okay. But if he could evolve a little bit more where I'll cheat forward, but not so far where I have to sprint back 4 yards and risk not being able to set. So it evolves over time.
To be fair, Sam, Omar knows a lot about getting caught out of position, up too high. I think this used to happen to him when he was 11 or 12 years old. The ball would just get lifted over and over and over again. So it's a pet peeve of him whenever he recognizes a goalkeeper that's 9 feet tall, that's still getting this caught in this situation.
That guy, hey, you know what? I'm saying Meslier, I wouldn't be surprised if he's France's #1 goalkeeper soon. I mean, he's got great size. I think Areola is having a great season this year too. I know Fulham is on the brink of maybe going down, but I think he's having a great season as well. So it's going to be an interesting if Lloris holds it for the next few years.
Sam, I got a question for you. What are some common triggers, that are important for you to put into your sessions?
Yeah, if I can go on the crossing one, Omar, because it's a good point you've brought up. And if I just think about session design and crossing sessions, there may be a lot of static crosses that have been, delivered in from the same side, the same ball. It's a cross that you can come and catch successfully, and you don't have any pressure. So if you think that might be a coaching session, as an example, just as a really quick example, how does that look in the game? So in crossing, I'll just ask you, Omar, what does crossing look like in a game for a goalkeeper?
Mayhem. It depends. It could be like, it could be a static from a corner, but there's still so much traffic in between. So you have a lot of factors that you have to take into account.
Exactly. So the key thing you just said there for me was a really good word, was mayhem. So in an 18-yard box, like, a ball can be coming in and it's one, is it an in swinger? Is it an out swinger? What's the pace on the ball? How is my assessment? Can I come and claim the ball? Do I need to punch it? Do I stay at home? How much pressure have I got around me? Where's the attackers coming from? So I'm sort of asking all these sort of questions, and it links back to my first point around these are the triggers and cues. We call them triggers and cues. So these are the triggers and cues that if we know how many people are in the box, if we know the difference between an in swinger and an out swinger and what that means to us positionally as a goalkeeper, if we know more and more and more about this, we'll be more effective, and our decisions will become a lot more consistent. And at the end point of that will be our actions will be the most effective they possibly can be. So that's just crossing. That's just crossing alone. That I've just brought up there. There's so many different triggers for you within one cross that if we only know that one bit of information, which is that ball's coming from there, we might not make the best decision or the most effective action based for that.
Yeah, I love the fact that you guys both brought up the flighted ball, scenario, because I think this is honestly one of the biggest mistakes, and I don't want to focus on all the negatives that young coaches make, but they will literally be spoon feeding the triggers that are going to be taking place. So the goalkeeper becomes dependent on the coach letting them know what's happening. So when they come into the game, and I know there's a big conversation that we had with Tim Dittmer, years back in regards to, we all as coaches want to coach. We think that coaching is all about saying as much as possible or whatever, but sometimes you have to let them figure it out. You design your sessions so that they have the autonomy to be able to figure it out for themselves. And then through trial and error, they'll learn what to recognize, what was a fake trigger, what was a real trigger, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I see some sessions that are high in the coach telling you what's coming. So Omar, I'm going to throw this ball up and you're going to catch it here. Then, what sort of thinking have you had to do? You've had to do no thinking, and it might just be that you're working on a technical element, which is fine, as long as you know the trade-offs that actually we're not being realistic to the game here. Whereas we put a session on where the cross is going to come, but you don't know where it's going to come from. You don't know how many players are going to be in the box. You don't even know if this cross is going to be yours to come for or not. Yes, when you first get put in these scenarios, you're going to see a lot of failure, but you're only going to learn from the failure. You're only going to learn from the different experiences. I think, Omar, you spoke about earlier just about, the more and more that Meslier gets put in this situation, he's going to find a way out of it. He's going to find his coping mechanism, his way of picking these triggers up, be more successful from the triggers. So I would say the more and more we can get these into our coaching sessions and training sessions and have these chaos sessions at times, the players are going to be more effective and they're going to make better decisions. If we strip it back and back, to work on technique, absolutely fine. But then we can't look at them in a game situation and go, why has he not made the right decision there? Or why is he coming for that cross? Why is he not coming for this cross? Are we preparing them properly in our sessions? Are we preparing them? Are we putting our sessions close to the game? Or are we far away from the game? Or are we having a little bit of balance of the both? So I think it's very important that we take this into consideration when we're coaching our young goalkeepers.
This kind of comes into consideration with this question right here that Chris Silowich had right here in regards to futsal and indoor soccer training, because I know here in the United States, a lot of, obviously when the weather is an issue, or space is an issue or whatever, a lot of times they'll go into the futsal court or they'll go into the indoor, pitch and do, small sided type training. How important is it, Sam, or do you disagree that it's something that you shouldn't incorporate into your training at the youth level?
I would never say anything is not important. I would never say, don't do this, don't do that. It's not important. I think as long as you can have clear rationale on why you're doing it. So if you're getting into futsal to encourage the goalkeeper to be better with the ball at his feet in a confined space with pressure around him when he's trying to play out, then that's a huge tick. You're going to get a lot of that. If you've got a bit of a smaller goal in the futsal arena and you want to work on those close blocks and spreads, then you're going to get that out. So I don't think there's a one size fits all in terms of what you're doing. I think as long as you can rationalize why we're doing certain things, nobody can argue with rationale, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the why is just like the most important thing right there. And I think that's one of the biggest problems in regards to when it comes in session design, Omar, with people, trying to incorporate artificial triggers into their sessions, is that they don't know the why they're doing it. They're just putting them in there because they think they have to, right?
Yeah, and I think that's to both of your points, but what Sam just said, I think the objective is just so important. I think for me, when I have conversations with the goalkeepers, I say, this is my objective. It's not so much to, this is the pattern I want you to perform and this is how it's going to look, but it's more like we talked about earlier, dissecting it one step further, where I say, hey, I'm going to have you, so today I worked on shifting from the central potential shot to shifting to the angle. It could be a slip ball through. It could be a ball towards the striker.
Hold on, the LA Galaxy too might be listening. Just careful how much information you give away.
But I say, guys, like the objective here is when that ball gets slipped in behind, don't overcorrect. Don't shift so far to the near post where if that striker has, most likely put their head down, will strike through the ball to that far post. You can't get that trailing leg or get that, get those arms coming across because your weight is shifted so far to the near post. So that's what I say is like, that's the objective that we're trying to get out of this is body control, composure when you're movement. And at the same time, don't match the speed of the ball. Can we get to the perceived point of contact or where that ball is going to be hit from a little bit early so we can situate our feet and get our feet, familiar with the ground so that if we need to step and go, we're not, as the ball is being hit, stepping and going, but rather we're already there. And then that step doesn't delay us. We're already going. So I think it's like, for me, that's the conversations that I have with my goalkeepers nowadays. And that's the difference between having a private, how I used to do it, where I'd see them once, twice a week. Now I see these goalkeepers every single day. So we're building on those conversations. We're building on those trigger moments or those I guess the verbiage that I can use. So the language is easy to pick up. And that's where I think, Chris Sharp from the Rapids, I watched his session and he was like, you may not understand what I'm saying to these guys, Omar, because these are like words that I've developed with them over time, but I coach on the fly. So I don't stop the flow of the session. And I just say 1, 2, or 3 things and they got it because I train them every single day. So for me, it's what's the objective? How can I coach them on the fly? And then how can I just let them figure it out as we go?
Omar, you brought up a really good point that actually, kind of has to go in regards to what's going on with Sam right here. And honestly, what that is the fact that at the international level, you have goalkeepers that are coming in from their club environments and they might have different language and they might have different bullet points that they've been given or different even information than how the FA is trying to develop goalkeepers, and how difficult it is to make sure that you're still running an efficient session, but not kind of like stepping on the toes of the development of the academy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest challenges I found when I first started working for the FA. I'd come from club environment, so I'd never worked in international football before. Exactly what Omar's alluding to there. You have the goalkeepers 24/7, 7 days a week, and you're working in your language, working in your style. And then when you come to England, you can have 3 goalkeepers from 3 different football clubs with 3 different styles. And I think the beauty in the way we work is we have an England DNA. You may have heard of it or seen it before. And it's how we play in possession and out of possession. And our out of possession principles are to support, to defend the space, defend the area, and defend the goal. So actually, we're not too prescriptive in how you do that. So, one goalkeeper may defend the area slightly different to the other goalkeeper, but if they're both highly effective, then that's our role as an international goalkeeper coach, is to make the boys be as effective they possibly can be. We're not pigeonholing goalkeepers into being a one size fits all. So this is an England goalkeeper. This is exactly what you do. This is exactly how you execute this. We may have a deeper setting goalkeeper who's actually really quick and efficient across his line, and also coming out and defending the space really, really well. We may have that type of goalkeeper. Then we may have a different goalkeeper who likes to be a little bit higher and a little bit more front foot, and a little bit more aggressive. Both of those goalkeepers will be able to find a way of playing the England system in the England way. So that's sort of one of the biggest challenges we have, and we need to make sure that we don't have, in a 10-day camp, for example, we may have 3 games, so we may only have 3 proper sessions, if you like, a proper session in terms of a build into a game, and then the other sessions may be like in between 2 fixtures. So it may be a bit of one goalkeeper's on a cool down, you got the other 2 goalkeepers for a training session. So you don't have sometimes the opportunity to break down and work technically with them. It's just making sure that they can tactically execute the game plan that we want to execute.
I love the fact that you brought up the England DNA, because I think this kind of like moves really well into by the way, here's my favorite thing, Omar. So Sam goes, he's like, oh, I have a few slides if you guys are down to check these out. And I'm like, yeah, send them. I thought it was going to be a couple stills. Dude, it's like a full on like hour presentation. Like these guys at the FA are just next level. So Sam, I want to start pulling out some of these slides and kind of going into this direction. So I'm going to pull this in here right now. And so let's kind of like start it kind of at the beginning right here. So walk us through what's going on here.
Yeah, so this is about like a perception cycle. So a little bit about recognizing the triggers. So every time you take a picture, you'll form a perception of what could potentially happen or what's about to happen. Then your action and movement or a movement or an action dependent on your perception, which will in turn have an outcome. And whatever the outcome will be will change the picture. And the cycle continues to go round and round. So as long as we sort of understand this is a cycle, this is how we can start to form the best information we possibly can from triggers. So that's like a perception cycle that we have a little look at there. So right at the top there, I think that sort of underpins it, that football is a variable game and no action or sequence happens the exact same twice. It doesn't. It can look very similar, but it will never happen twice exactly the same.
Yeah, Omar, I think you need to hire Sam to do some Photoshop work for you. This is a pretty next level, especially with the eyes up there. That really gets you going right away. But no, in all honesty, I absolutely love what you're saying right here, because the perception is massive, because everyone's going to have a different perception of an action and a sequence that's happening. And there's no such thing as it's the right perception or the wrong perception, because if you believe it, then it's real to you. Right, Omar?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's the way this cycle goes. It's so true. We use those outcomes to help our perception of like, okay, did I see that the right way? And for example, like another thing that I've noticed as well in the last few years that I've trained is that like there are some goalkeepers who have never been coached in a way where if something goes bad or they've seen a play and they've done, based on their perception, a certain action and that outcome wasn't successful, a lot of them don't necessarily know how to dissect what went wrong. Maybe out of those 5 minor decisions, 4 of them were right, but that last final action was wrong. So a lot of them don't know how to go back and say 4 out of 5 were right, or yeah, we're right, but that last one was wrong. What did I do wrong? A lot of them just sometimes go, damn, it was all wrong, scrap it, change it completely, and then it's starting from square one. So I think as well from coaches who are in the professional setting or private sector, whatever you do, try and find ways to either stop the session, which I've tried to do. And some kids are, they're more audible or visual learners. And some of them just don't get it, but just stop the session and say, like, hey, like, what was it about that you felt went right and what went wrong? And a lot of times when they're forced to verbalize that, a lot of the kids will go, oh, you know what? You're right, though. I wasn't wrong the entire way. It was just that final action I misread. So I think that's where I think the conversation can kind of progress, where now this cycle is not a vicious cycle, but more of an opportunity for them to learn.
Omar, I absolutely love what you just said right there. And Sam, I think, this is kind of hitting the nail on the head right here. Is so many young goalkeepers, including myself as a veteran goalkeeper, if I still want to call myself that, somebody that used to play in goal. How about that? is that we will scrap something the immediate moment that we see any sort of negative feedback towards it, as opposed to recognizing the fact that, maybe we were on the right path and we didn't give it enough time to develop, to really learn. I mean, how many young goalkeepers have you seen, Sam, who are trying a new technique and they give up on it the second they try it out, as opposed to realizing it's going to be a process?
Yeah, and this can be summed up really, really quickly. It's our fault if they do that as coaches. It's definitely our fault, because if we see them try something, but the execution or the action just didn't go right, but the process they did before that action was right, and we criticize them more, don't do this, don't do that. How are we going to expect them to keep trying it and keep exploring and keep discovering different ways of finding that out? We have to praise the intent. We have to praise the intent more than the action. If the action is the only thing that they're falling down on, but the process before it is absolutely spot on, we praise the intent.
I love the fact that you said that. So let's kind of move forward on this right here. So now what do we got right here? Is this just your Premier League match review? Is that what's going on right here, or are we're going to be breaking this down right here?
It's just a couple of clips, that I wanted to show. So this is going to play through twice. Okay. So I'm just going to throw it out there and see the perception cycle. How many times can you spot the perceptual cycle in action? So this is going to play through once, and then you'll see it play through again before we break it down. Okay.
All right. Let's Omar, do you kind of want to walk through the scenario for everybody who's listening and not watching this right now, basically on what's going on here?
Ball's in the wide flank, and I forgot the striker's name from Wolves. Oh my God, Mexican striker. It's Jimenez.
Yes.
Jimenez.
You literally should know that.
Slipped.
Like, he's the one Mexican on that team. Okay.
I know. Raul Jimenez gets slipped in behind the defense, so the defense is tracking back. Jimenez is in a wider area, so not a perceived threat on goal right away. So Alisson doesn't come out, but he checks his post, and then he realizes now he's becoming more of a threat as he dribbles in towards the goal. And then for me at least, he reads the touch, and then from there he realizes he's gotten close enough that he can turn into that block save.
All right, so now let's.
Sam, how did I do? Please.
Let's see Sam's notes. Let's see Sam's notes on here.
Yeah.
So let's.
Yeah.
See.
No, that was brilliant, Omar. That was brilliant. So yeah, it's basically a really simple action that you see, but we're going to break it down now. So from right at the start, we can see as it plays through, he's in a position here. So he's in a position based upon the two pictures. He perceives there's going to be a through ball or a switch of play. So he holds a nice high position there, and you can see him in the top corner. He's actually looking at the other side of the pitch. So he knows that there's a player out there. So straight away, he's in that high front foot position, ready for that through ball. And you can see Jimenez threatening him behind. So when this now plays on, you can see how the outcome is the ball goes through. So as this plays on, which should do in a minute, I think, Michael, unless it's froze on me.
Yeah.
There we go.
No.
So as the outcome now is a through ball, but he realizes that he can't affect it. So he can't affect the through ball. He needs to drop into a position because he perceives that the striker here now, if he picks his head up, Jimenez, he can score because he's out of position. So he actions a recovery movement into that near post and make sure that he stops that action first. So as this plays on, you'll see him do that.
All right, should go right now. There we go.
There we go. So now he's looking. The outcome is the striker now has to drive into the box because he hasn't got the option to take it early. So Jimenez, as he's driving, I don't know if you can see it there on that still, but look at the head movement there of Alisson. He's now took a picture to see where that wide player was that he was originally looking at. He now knows that he's not entered the box. He's not going to be there for a square, a tap in. So now he can perform that rush action and make that blocking save. The outcome is there's no goal.
I absolutely love, first off, with the English accent, it just sounds such more eloquent than what Omar said right there.
Michael, let me tell you now, a Yorkshire accent has never been described as eloquent. I'll tell you that much.
We can't tell the difference over here. Come on, what are you talking about? Yeah, unless it's somebody from the north, and then we have no idea, really, honestly, what they're saying. No, shout out to everybody in Scotland. We love you guys. But in reality, I love the fact that you brought up the swivel right there, because that's something that, Omar, I know you've been really, really big on, is that head swivel. To take that mental picture. If you take that mental picture, you're going to have an idea of what's taking place and what could be the potential outcomes of this scenario right there.
I mean, again, when we talk about earlier, when Sam mentioned static crossing, I think, again, that's one of those situations where the game has evolved so much now where we're understanding that the perception on our peripheral vision, the like swivel, sometimes you have to swivel right full head tilt to the right side or that, but usually you can use it per peripheral vision right there. So even knowing in training, can we have them recover from like the 6 where the ball gets taken down the line and now they're recovering, but as they're recovering, they're working on 2 things, their movement and their peripheral vision to the side. So now, again, this is a really good example of seeing how Allison was able to use that quick trigger that potentially was trained in training, where a coach could put a yellow cone or a red cone. And as he is recovering, he has to call out the color. And that's that trained perception of looking that peripheral way. So I think, again, Sam, to your point earlier, like there are so many ways that we can break down crossing in certain plays and transition peripheral. Those are just 2 of the ways that you could potentially help a goalkeeper avoid just those static crosses in sessions.
So let's move on right here to the Dean Henderson play. So for those of you guys who are listening in the audio, I'll just edit this part out instead of having Omar break it down because Sam does such a great job. We don't have to. So let's watch the play so that we get the idea right here. This is a young gentleman who's the future of the Manchester United Football Club. I'm just going to say it right there. No disrespect to David De Gea. I think Dean Henderson has a bright future. And this is back during his loan spell at Sheffield. Against a little team called Man City.
Michael, let me just stop you there. I'm a Sheffield United fan. There's a big team there, Sheffield Wednesday as well. You have to reference Sheffield United, not Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh,
it's
that's
always
right.
Sheffield United, not Sheffield.
That's very true. That is very true. I apologize on that one right there. It would be like saying Omar's working for LA Galaxy. We don't want to say if I just said LA, everyone would just assume Galaxy.
An LA team, yeah.
All right, a little bit more history between Sheffield and Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday. All right, here we go.
Jesus, right, 30 seconds I haven't gone
to the center of the 6-yard box to Kun Aguero, who taps it in. So the perception cycle is still there in this element, but we can see and how Henderson, positions himself. So if we break it down as we're going through this now, as this ball goes to this wide area here, and the ball gets played in, I think it's Sterling there who plays the ball out wide. He sees the picture of the 3 City players and he perceives that, okay, there's going to be a potential wide delivery here. And he's probably thinking in this scenario that this ball is going to be delivered to that sort of front area, which is where he's positioned himself. So he's actioned the position based upon the information that he's gathered here. But actually, when that ball gets played in, it's played to the center of the goal and tapped in by Kun Aguero. And there's actually only one Manchester City player in the area there. So if we think back to the perception cycle, a question might be, did he know Aguero was there? Did he know the threat was going to be in the center of the 6-yard box? If he did, would that have changed his position? And would that have changed the outcome? These are all probably questions that we'd all love to answer one day, but it's just making sure that the perception cycle, how many times can we see it? So it doesn't just go around once, it goes around 2, 3, 4 times, and it changes every single time an outcome changes. So that was just a quick one there for you to look at.
I have a question about that though, Sam, is because one of the things that I've stressed with younger goalkeepers as well too, in regards to that, is like let's say with the Dean Henderson situation right here, just because the play ended up with a goal, does that not necessarily mean that you're still learning and you're still developing and you're still kind of understanding how to break down those movements and to recognize everything, because it's going to be a building block. You might be able to see 2 triggers, and then next season you see 3 triggers, and then the season after that you see the entire play developed, and that's the maturation of the goalkeeper. Am I wrong on that at all?
No, absolutely. I think if that was a training session and that happened, or you were going through the game review after with this goalkeeper, you'd ask those questions. So you would ask the question and go, did you see Aguero there? Did you know he was there? Did you know that was where the end point was going to be of the cross? And you get the goalkeeper's view then. And if he says, no, I didn't see him, it's quite an obvious one for me to go, okay, so where was the opportunity where we could have seen him? So was it as the ball was played wide? Could we have had that little look over our right shoulder and see where the attacking threat is going to be? And from that, what would we have changed? So I think what you start to do with the goalkeeper there is you start to ask the questions and he starts to give you the answers, rather than you just give him the answer. So he might then say, well, I might position myself differently now knowing this. And then you go, okay, where would you position yourself? He starts to show you. And And then that's how the learning process is taking place. I don't think the learning process takes place very well if I was feeding back to a goalkeeper and just said, right, when the ball's there, you need to stand here because that's where it ended up. And he doesn't necessarily know why I've asked him to stand there, or why he should do something different to what he did do. Listen, at the end of the day, he could position himself in a different position, and that goal could still happen. I'm not saying Dean Henderson would have saved that if he'd have been in a better position. It was just to show that was he aware Aguero was there or was he not?
Omar, do you think he was aware?
Yeah, no, I think he was aware, but I think if you wanted to compare it to what Allison did, he looked once, and then, like, I guess the picture had changed because, as Sam said, there was 3 guys in his direct vision right here, and then you see Aguero, he loops around and then creates that space. So maybe that picture, he could have seen it if he looked back, it would have been different. But that's just nitpicking. But I think, for example, like in that situation, I was watching Simon Mignolet, I think it was like a week and a half ago, and you see him cheating off a cutback or a cross, and he's cheating so much off his line to the perceived threat that's those runners in the box, and the striker looks up and hits it to his near post, and Mignolet has to make an emergency save coming back across. So it's just like you have to, for me at least, I'd be like, look, I don't know if I would go as extreme as Mignolet by cheating up into that space because that near post is exposed. But at the same time, if I'm looking at Dean Henderson, I'm like, at the same time, there is only one place where this ball could go. So maybe you can leave your near post just slightly vulnerable and split the difference. So I think that's where, for me at least, when you are able to compare somewhat situations and balls from similar positions, is like, what perceived threat do you see down the middle, and what liberties can you take in those positions?
Omar, what TV package do you have where you get to see Club Bruges games on the regular? Where did you find this?
No, I saw it online. Someone posted a highlight, and they were just like, "What a save!" And then, of course, you go to the comment section, and you have everybody who thinks they're the next best thing, and they talk about, oh yeah, Mignolet sucks this, and I'm like, yeah, it's a tough position to be in. He cheated for sure, but he made the save. And for me at that position, I'm like, well, if it didn't go in, it's a learning lesson. So it's an opportunity to learn. So as a coach, I'm like, I wouldn't tell you to do that. But if you feel like you've seen from the scouting report that most likely those balls fall in between the 6 and the PK spot, and you can advance yourself a little bit to cheat, I'm not going to say anything negative about it.
So let's move on right here because Sam, put this amazing, elaborate presentation together for us. So Sam, move us forward here. Where are we going now?
Yes, we spoke a lot about the triggers, and it's recognizing where we can, sort of ask the goalkeepers when to scan and when to look for these triggers, and what sort of things, will be in play where we can do this. So when a player's head down, looking at the ball, so a striker, for example, when he's got his head down, that's when we could be looking elsewhere. Or when the ball is being played to another player, so when that ball got played from the centre to De Bruyne out wide, that's an opportunity to look and scan. A clear trigger that the player's going to take a touch. Now all of a sudden I can be taking another look, so that's now 2/3 scans that I've had a little look at. And our defenders blocking an instant action, so by them getting tight to somebody, are they blocking a pass, are they blocking a cross? Again, allows us in turn to look elsewhere and spot different things, and sort of, I've probably scanned there 3-4 times in one phase of play.
I mean, I love how succinct you are with these bullet points right here, because I think that's one of the biggest issues that I see a lot of times, especially with a lot of young goalkeeper coaches, is they overcomplicate it. Rather than those 4 points that you put up there or 5 points that you put up there right there, they have 20 different points that they gave to a 12s goalkeeper. And like, first off, the kid can't comprehend all that at that age. And then second of all, I'd be confused. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the adolescent brain actually takes on better information than us. So like, our brains are more developed. So then the best thing is, if they're getting baffled, you can definitely guess that we are going to get baffled as well. If we took them 20 points off them and said, recite the 20 points back to you, I bet they couldn't. So how do they expect, the player to notice that? I think if you get 2 or 3 key ones in there, I think that's going to be the most effective way.
Yeah. So let's move on right here as this is coming through right here. Oh, look at this. We got England. So here we go.
Yeah, so this is all about like, can our session designs be set up to allow our players to recognize and practice this? So there was just a couple of really, really, simple examples, and I'm sure there'd be a lot of better sessions out here. But from a shot stopping example, where can we get the perception cycle going? So we take a picture as the ball's being played out wide. There's no direct shot, no direct action from the defender position. So we can also see where the follow-up is going to be there. So when the shot comes in, we know where we're parrying the ball to. And then from a crossing example, we take a picture as the ball is played out wide. We take another picture if he's going to take a touch, and we get to see where the attacking threat is from. So for me, if we're in a wide area crossing, if we only have one player and he's attacking the front half of the goal, it makes more sense to defend closer to your near post, because that's the only place the ball is going to go. If it goes past you and goes out, we can sort of maybe say to our fullback, let it run, because nobody's there. And that's a key communication point. Don't know, Omar, you might have seen a couple of times where if the ball gets stood up to the back post and there's absolutely no player there, the fullback then heads it out for a corner because he's not sure. The goalkeeper's not sure because nobody's scanned and seen that picture, and nobody knows where the attacking threat is.
Go ahead, Omar.
No, and again, I think for me, as you're saying what you're saying, I'm trying to perceive it the way I perceive it, and that the only way, not the only way, but one of the ways that I'm perceiving all this is like on 1v1s, and you take those opportunities when the striker takes a big touch. I mean, since we were kids, it was always like wait for the big touch, because what happens with the big touch? The striker has to chase the ball, and when they chase the ball, their head goes down, and now the picture that they once saw when their head was up is completely different. So can we as goalkeepers be opportunistic where they take that big touch and then they pick their head back up, they see a different picture because we took that opportunity to advance our position? So now whether it's a block save or whether it's you advance 2 yards to close down the angle for a better shot stopping opportunity, whatever the case may be, now it's a different picture for them. So I think now transitioning it back to what you're saying, and I did this today even with just functional crossing. It was like our recovery, is I had one of our guys on top of the D on the 18. They played me a ball. The goalkeeper was on top of the 6. They transitioned. And as I took my touch, then again, they had the opportunity to look to the far post. I didn't have anyone there because it was the end of practice, but normally I would have someone with a number or like a cone just so they can use that ability to look at the far post and use their peripheral. But I think seeing and comparing the 1v1 where we take our opportunities when the head goes down, same thing as when the striker's head goes down and take a big touch, like you're saying, Sam. Can we now find opportunities to better our positioning or better our communication with our defenders who are tracking back?
You're just bringing up something that's just making my head explode right now, because I'm thinking about session designs here in my head right now, and I want to run a session. And Sam, I don't know if you've ever done this, where you intentionally run scenarios of heavy touches to teach these goalkeepers how to use the advantage of a heavy touch to really be able to scan the field and then develop those habits. So the better they get at it, the smaller the touches, they still can do it because they've kind of developed that mental muscle. Does that make any sense, or am I a crazy person?
No, absolutely does make sense. Absolutely does make sense. And I think, yeah, definitely we recreate the scenario for them, the game situation and the scenario, and we get them used to it and we get them comfortable to it. And we also get them, aware of where the triggers are and what to look for. Then the next bit from that, we would call them like live sessions. So you throw them into it where they have no idea what's going to happen. So it looks like the game, it can be a two-way practice. And they don't know if they're going to be able to come for that big touch, because the big touch may never come. So then you're testing them and seeing if they, because of the muscle memory you spoke about, if they're chasing the big touch, or are they waiting for the big touch? And if it doesn't come, do they readjust and do something different from the triggers and cues that they're faced with?
Sam, I just love what you just brought up as we're kind of bringing up this lovely session planner that you have up there. Is that a lot of young goalkeepers are waiting for the scenarios they saw in training to happen in the game, rather than vice versa at training, looking for the scenarios that they've seen in matches, and that's something that I think is really difficult for young goalkeeper coaches to really handle and understand. That, like, in my opinion, personally, I think I used to do this as a younger coach, was basically, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am basically teaching them specific scenarios for them to be able to recognize them at the training. But then when it comes to the matches themselves, if it doesn't match the training scenarios, they're kind of out. I don't want to say like they're panicking, but they're kind of just clueless on what to do.
Yeah, Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all about the session design and getting the session design right. And if we can get that right, then we place the boys in the best position possible. So, if you start with what I've just highlighted there, would be start with your outcomes. So if we speak about blocks and spreads, Omar, from what you've been saying today, if we speak about session outcomes, I want decisive decisions when to smother, block, and spread, and having effective actions. Then we'll look at what is the game situation that we want to recreate. So the game situation will probably be, balls slid in and around the 18-yard box and goalkeepers advancing into these areas. The exercise outcomes then that we're doing is we really want them to make the decisive decision of when to do these 3 actions. What triggers and cues should they be looking for? So the triggers may be, you spoke about a big touch. So the big touch is a trigger that I can go and advance. Another trigger maybe is the ball on the floor, is it bouncing? Because I think that changes for me. If the ball's bouncing, it's quite easy. If you start advancing, they'll lift the ball over the top of you. So you might have to maybe stay or sort of get yourself in more of a prepared position. And then the action choices, quite simple there, where I said smother, block, or spread, maybe the 3 action choices that you want to work on. And then within your practice, there may be certain rules or constraints that you want to put on the practice that will help you allow to get this live session out. And some rules may be that you get 3 goals for, or you get 3 points for making a smother save, because I've seen in the last couple of weeks that the smother action, leading with your hands and going in at feet, sort of going out of our game a little bit, because people are obsessed with spreads and blocks. So it's going out of our game a little bit, but it's still like a really effective action. So you may put a rule in or a constraint in where you go, if you smother it and it was the right decision, you get an extra point, and you're playing a competition against the other goalkeepers. Encourages them to make the right decisions and choose the right actions. And then the last one for me would be, are we looking to stretch or support? So there's a bit of an error on there. It shouldn't say stretch. It should be stretch or support. So within the session, should we be looking to stretch the goalkeeper who's thriving, and how are we going to do that? And then how do we support the goalkeeper who's actually struggling within the session as well? So again, it may be, a point system where you're looking to stretch the goalkeeper, and the only way he gets stretched is by, he has to make the right execution and he has to make the right action, because he's that far down the line with what you're asking him to do. Whereas the other boy who's maybe struggling, or girl who's maybe struggling, you probably got to go, right, the way we're going to support it is by the intent. When I said praise the intent, they get a point for intent no matter what happens. So if the ball goes in the back of the net, we're not necessarily worried on that right now with this goalkeeper. We're looking to develop and help them.
It's Sam, I love the fact that you brought up the example in regards to the smother, because actually MCD Colossal Keepers here in the comment section brought that up in regards to, is the block and spread replacing the smother. I mean, I think the number one thing I think in regards to the evolution of the game, in my opinion personally, is we don't forget, for the lack of a better term, traditional goalkeeping. We just incorporate new things or new tools into our toolbox. Do you kind of feel like there's, and I don't know how it is in Europe or whatever, but if there's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I do it this way, or I do it, or I'm like a modern goalkeeping coach or whatever, and not kind of looking at the fact that you kind of have to be able to blend the best of everybody's education.
Yeah, I may sound like a broken record, but it's about being effective again, and your way of being effective as the individual goalkeeper. So, the smother save, if you're really good at smothers, so Hugo Lloris would be a good example of somebody who's a deep setting goalkeeper, but really quick off his line. So he actually chooses a lot of smothers, whereas somebody else like maybe an Allison and Edison, maybe more spreads and blocks, but they're both highly effective in the 2 ways they deal with the same scenario. So it's not one size fits all again. And I think from an in possession point of view, from goalkeepers, over the years, there's been massive emphasis on playing out from the back. If I use Edison as an example, he's outstanding at playing out from the back with both feet. But you can still recognise that I think the preseason game might have actually been in LA against Chelsea a couple of years ago, and he hit the ball 90 yards in behind from a goal kick. So he can play both systems, and he's highly effective at doing both. So nothing replaces anything, in my opinion. It's just like you said, maybe a blended, effective way, and finding your way individually of being the most decisive and effective you can be.
I mean, this has been a just honestly a trend that we've been seeing when we have, phenomenal goalkeeper coaches like yourself, on the podcast. And then, every once in a while, Omar makes a brilliant point on along the lines of the brilliant goalkeeper coaches we have on. And I just try to say something funny. But no, is that the effectiveness is so important. And I think when you're looking at your session design and when you're looking at making coaching points to your young goalkeepers, rather than berating them for something that didn't happen the way you perceived it to be the most, successful action, if it was effective, explain to them why it was effective, rather than telling them you should have done it this way because it would have been, more successful. You got the job done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would challenge coaches out there, goalkeeper coaches, even outfield coaches to look at this and go, when you see a goalkeeper do an effective action, praise that, because we're quick to judge and we're quick to try and correct something when it's not gone well. So we need to praise the intent when it goes well as well. When it comes off for us, we need to do that. And I just think that as long as the process, especially in young goalkeepers, as long as the process they went through from their position, their assessment of what happened and the decision that they decided to do, the action then, if it didn't quite come off at that moment in time, it's okay. It would be worrying if the action carried out, if the process was all the same, but the action kept on being, something that wasn't coming off, then that tells me that we may have to maybe take this goalkeeper and work on his action. So his execution of that technique may need refining to make him more successful when he gets put back into the scenario stuff. But his process all the way through that up to the end point was really good. So I think recognizing that is key for us.
Omar, obviously, you're in the professional environment right now. And so, you're seeing at a different level than when you were working in the amateur game earlier on, in regards to the fact that you have more time, but obviously at the youth game, and by youth game, Sam, I don't mean, the high level academy game, but at the grassroots level and everything like that, there might be a parent here listening or a younger coach or whatever. And they go, no, this sounds fantastic, but I only have X amount of time. Do I need to kind of prioritize or kind of sectionalize, my sessions so that I'm working on the technical, I'm working on the tactical, maybe the mental, or can I do it all at the same time? I know Tom Fowdry, over at Melbourne Victory in Australia, he's a big proponent on, when you have a small amount of time, that it's better to incorporate all the elements, the technical, the tactical, the mental, all into one framework. How do you feel?
Is that to Omar, maybe?
Oh, well, whoever wants to take it. I mean, I would give it to Omar, but it'd be, just something he's probably said already on the podcast. So I guess you're the guest. Whoever wants to say it. So.
Yeah, no. I would agree. A blend of everything is the best. But I think the key thing for me is understanding the trade-offs. So if you're going to be highly technical in a session, the trade-off is you're going to get less realistic scenarios and less decision making. And then if you're going to do high live sessions in terms of loads of realism, you're going to probably miss out on the repetition, and you're probably not going to get the repetition of technique. So I think understanding, again, what you're going to deliver and what the outcome is going to be by delivering it a certain way, then you'll start to formalize, right, okay, this goalkeeper, I might need to work on his technique of his spreads. So actually for the full session, I'm just going to work on the technical side of it. So he's going to get loads of goals at it. He's going to be coached and it's going to be broken down for him. And, that's what I'm going to go for. And there's not going to be many realistic scenarios he's going to face tonight. However, the next time we do it, we may place him into high realism to give him the opportunity to now try and get that action out. And it's just working through that way and dialing up, dialing down, if you like, and understanding it. But I think if you've only got 2 sessions a week or something like that, a blend is about right. But for me, just understanding the trade-offs is going to be the key thing for you.
Now we'll go to Omar, so he can make an eloquent point on his own right here. But I think one of the things, Omar, that I think is really, really difficult, especially at the foundational stage, is kind of prioritizing, what is important. Sam, you just brought up, okay, this goalkeeper needs to work on, let's say, smothering. So I'm going to, take this goalkeeper in isolation and I'm going to work with them for an hour, on this specific movement. How important is it, Omar, for you to make sure that they know the why before the session even begins on why this is the focus of the session today? Rather than letting them just go like, we're at training today and I'm just going to kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last, we've been with LAFC for like a month and a half now. So before that, I was doing my private sessions, and I wanted to try something new with the older goalkeepers that I was working with, just to we've been saying, is let them understand the objective of the session without spoon feeding it. And I think for me, it was, okay, what am I trying to recreate with this session? And Mike, you know this, I have so many different clips saved, like time stamped, and I can actually, draw sessions out from, okay, the ball was rebounded here. What's the second action after that? Okay, let me try and recreate that and show the goalkeeper. So what I've been doing is I actually put those clips together of what I'm trying to get from the session and why I drew the session the way I drew it up. I show them the footage, and we have like a 5-6 minute discussion while they're stretching before training. So now I'm showing them, this is what we're going to work on. This is where the ball's almost likely be coming from. This is where the starting points are probably going to be at the beginning of the session. This is where I'll start you and then transition you from like the PK spot back to your line, and then you'll get across. So now they're seeing the actual footage, and we're having like a baseline discussion of the like fundamentals of what they're seeing. And it gives me an idea of what they're seeing, and some of them are very clueless. They have no idea. They've never actually dissected footage before. And some of them are like, oh, I've seen this before. This is what this in this situation, the goalkeeper didn't look to his right, so he had no idea there was runners coming in. So now that's like in sessions, I've noticed where on a 1v1 or cross, and they make a misjudgment or they misplace their technique, they'll say, oh, just like the goalkeeper did in the footage. So now again, it's just, for me at least, it's like that language that we're developing. Instead of it being every single day, now it's like we broke down footage of what we're trying to, the objective we're trying to accomplish here in the session. And now we're actually able to have those like mental recall and illustrations in the back of their head that we all discussed together. So I've tried to do that, and I feel like it's worked.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that you said that right there, because I think Sam, and tell me, how you feel about this is, if you are a goalkeeper, right, and you are, being told something, and you're never really understanding why we're going here and why this progression is taking place, are you really going to be able to understand how to make decisions in matches? Or are you really only going to be able to kind of, for the lack of a better term, go through those actions when somebody tells you what actions to make?
Yeah, I think it's in anything, forget football. If you don't know why you're doing something, then one, you're not gonna be involved in the process, and you're not gonna understand why you're doing it. So you're not gonna buy into it. Whereas, I think if you're told why, or if you ask the question, I'd always put it back on the goalkeeper and say, if a coach is telling you to do something, you don't know why, then ask, because the only stupid question is the question you don't ask. Because as soon as you don't know what you know. So, if I'm going to ask my goalkeepers to be, effective, efficient, and be tactically astute, they need to know why they're doing something. They need to know why I'm asking them to maybe scan and see this player. The reason you're scanning to see this player is because you will know that from the information you've just got now from this trigger, this now means a few possibilities for you. This now means that you can position yourself a little bit more intelligently here to maybe predict that this is going to happen, and it puts you in a good spot to maybe try and cut this ball out, or to maybe choose that spread save because of the big touch that we spoke about earlier. So if we just say, position yourself here, and we don't give them a why, they will position themselves there, but they'll be looking for you to keep giving them the answer. If we give them why and we involve them in it, all of a sudden, we'll be able to just drop little things into them, and they'll be able to work it out for themselves. Because Omar, you can't stand behind LA. I nearly said LA Galaxy there. You can't stand behind LAFC's goal. You can't stand behind the goal and coach your goalkeeper through the whole game. You can't tell him to look for what to look for, when to look for it. He has to be out on that pitch on his own for 90 minutes, and he needs to recognize it himself.
Sam, I don't know if I don't know if you know this right here, but you were bringing up the Birmingham Aston Villa situation with yourself right there. Omar came through the LA Galaxy Academy, so this is
right.
So now he's switching hats. He's putting on that dark hat right there. I don't know how your family feels about it, Omar. Guys, first off, honestly, Sam, thanks for taking all the time. I mean, because I know it's late at night for you over there, and I really appreciate you staying up late. I think this is really valuable information for everybody out there, and just absolutely outstanding presentation. But kind of before we kind of wrap up and everything, obviously, as you know, Omar's very big in video analysis. Shout out to you, Omar, and just phenomenal content every week in and week out. Even with your busy schedule right now, you still have a good amount of content that's going out there. Sam, do you guys use in the FA? Do you guys use, for instance, like the presentation you just showed us right there? Do you use that more conceptually to kind of give big picture ideas to the young goalkeepers, or do you actually design sessions based on, scenarios that you see in these matches?
We always work from the game backwards. So whether we are, putting a DNA session on for the under-15s that are new, and we want to see what they're like at defending the area and goal and space, we would show them our DNA, but it wouldn't be it wouldn't just be slides. It'd be loads of videos of matches of them defending the space and different ways of defending the space, different ways of defending the goal. We'd show them that, and then we'd design our sessions off the back of the game. So if we were doing that DNA session, it'd be around, okay, exactly what we spoke about. What are the type of things that we want to see from the goalkeepers? We want to see them make big saves. What type of saves do we want to make them see? We want to see a variety of different saves. So our session design is now going to allow that to naturally come out in the session without it being prescribed. And then, if we're actually looking for a competition, either a tournament or a qualifier, we may actually be looking at the attacking threats of the opposition. And we may be looking at, okay, there's a lot of cutbacks from Spain as an example, and we need to show them the cutbacks of Spain. Then we need to show them, we're putting this session on to try and work on the cutbacks that we may face in the game on Friday or Saturday or whenever we're playing the game. Same in possession as well. We'll look at how the opposition presses and how we can exploit space. So there's multiple different ways, but the key thing for us is everything we do, we always work back from the game.
I mean, honestly, man, I think that's absolutely phenomenal the way you just said that right there. And I think a lot of, goalkeeper coaches out there should listen to that and recognize the fact that, how important it is to use the game as the template, as opposed to using the session design as the template for the game. Kind of work in reverse right there. Omar, anything you want to add before we kind of wrap up here?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything. I'm just going to say thank you to Sam I know it's late over there, so I just want to say thank you for coming on. Hopefully we can have you on and maybe one day link up with you in the UK. So appreciate you coming on.
No, great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
For sure, man. For sure. Before, as we wrap right here, Sam, I know you're not huge on social media, but I know that the FA is very much about, people learning, and there's a lot of great resources out there from the FA. What are some of those resources that you would tell people to check out on the goalkeeping end?
Yeah. So there's always the Twitter handle for the FA, which is at England, and there's loads of stuff posted on there. There's the YouTube channel that we can look for as well. So if you go on YouTube and go into the FA education on there, you can see different types of webinars that have been done over the last 12 months or 18 months or however long it's been since we've been in the COVID sort of period. There's loads of resources on there for people to look. And if you want to search for myself on Instagram, it's at Meeky1989, and Twitter is exactly the same. And Tim Dick may have mentioned him. He's always a great contact to search through on Twitter. He always posts some great discussions on there for coaches as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, shout out to all of you guys for being so accessible. I mean, honestly, if people didn't know any better, they would have no idea, the level that you guys are coaching at because of the fact that you guys get back to people so quickly. I mean, I think it's absolutely phenomenal. By the way, Brett Howard right here just said, thank you. Great, as I am working on these points right now and will assist in developing young goalkeepers to look for these trigger points. So shout out to Brett Howard. I'm glad you got something out of this. Guys, if you want to reach out to Omar Zini, it's omar@lafc.com. No, it's Pro GK Academy. Pro GK Academy _ on Instagram. Obviously contact at inside the18media.com if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion, or at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms. If you want to reach out to me directly on everything. By the way, shout out to all the insiders who've been coming out to my comedy show.